Good morning. I am at 181st Street, West 181st Street and Amsterdam Avenue at the intersection of the Cross Bronx Expressway, McNally Plaza, right? I'm here today to look at the entryway, the access points, the lighting, the vegetation, the landscaping, and all of the issues that I think deserve some attention, some improvement, and ultimately city funding so that we can improve the quality of experience at the Hamilton Bridge Skatepark, and maybe consider renaming it or putting better signage to it or some sort of marker so that people know where the park is. But the Hamilton Bridge Skatepark is essentially directly underneath this roadway that comes right up to this point. And you will notice that there's zero signage from this point to that point. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a walk down the pathway, but first we're gonna go up into the sky and take a look at the park from a distance somewhere in this vicinity. But yeah, this park definitely can use some serious improvements. So let's get the drone in the air and we will continue this conversation. So I propose that we get some signage placed. You know, there's all sorts of signs here posted, but there's no signs telling you that there's a skate park in this direction. I think it would be very good to have some signage somewhere in this vicinity that's letting people know that there's a skate park, and maybe signage even on the ground that says, hey, this is the way to the skate park. As you can see now, I have to traverse through this massive puddle. Thankfully, the locals have made it a bit safer and secure, but this is no way for anyone to enter a skate park, let alone if you're bringing your children, your grandmothers, your elderly, to watch you compete in an event. Now, as I'm approaching these stairs, I think it's important to note that anyone who's a beginner skateboarder or inline skater, keep in mind, if you're on roller skates or inline skates and your feet are strapped into the skate, if you're coming down this hill, approaching these steps, and you don't know that you're approaching steps, you're gonna run into a very dangerous situation. As you can see, the lights are still clearly on, and there are a lot of lights. That was an earlier complaint that we had a few years ago about lighting, and they obviously have since repaired it. But I think it was mainly an issue during COVID. In 2021, there was no real issue with lighting. We landscaped that entire section. I did a lot of landscaping along this front and pushed some of the bushes and the shrubs back. But essentially all I was doing was clearing a path so that someone who wanted to skate the exterior ledges or do any maneuvers on the wall would not be interrupted by vegetation and by the bugs and by the insects, right? The same thing applies on the other end, right? So all of this vegetation needs to be kept back a bit from the wall so that people can stand, people can congregate, and people can also skate. This entire top portion and that entire walkway leading back to 181st in Amsterdam needs to be properly landscaped and some of the vegetation pushed back a bit. Same thing applies here. What happens when we host an event is you have a lot of people congregating on the steps. You have a lot of people congregating in the bushes where these bushes are now. So when I was here in 2021, I did a lot of landscaping on the shrubs and the bushes, but it turns out that parks had already cleaned up a lot of it because of the homeless population. In particular, I focus on areas that are next to the obstacles. So there's generally a lot of debris behind each of these obstacles, and these are the main areas that we seek to clean. You know, for example, this area I would look to clean probably anywhere from 5 to even 10 feet back. meaning all of this greenery pushed back 10 feet. And if I had a choice in saying the matter, I would seek to get city approval so that we could build some sort of bleacher-style stadium seating into the landscape so that there is no more vegetation here. Literally no more vegetation from the top of the stairs where the large rock is, all the way down across and all the way to the bottom. Everything else as far as the park is concerned is generally well designed and well maintained. You can see there's definitely been a lot of work done recently, but this does not suffice for the level of skating and the skate events that we organize. Again, a lot of parents, children, grandparents even make it out to these memorial events, and there's often no place for them to sit comfortably. Parking becomes an issue. Restroom facilities also becomes an issue. But yeah, even this, for example, is something that could use some TLC in a very creative way. I don't know how, but I think the fact that we even have a tree and landscaping smack dab in the middle of the park is a beautiful thing, and I would like to see more of that. Yes, there are some trees surrounding that area there, but I think as food for thought, this is one of my favorite parks in New York City. It is alleged to be the largest skate park in New York City, and I think we can learn a lot about this park in terms of a section that has a bit of flow to it. Though it is mostly downhill flow, I would love to see more parks designed like this, and like the Lower East Side Coleman Skate Park, where there is flow, where flow is a main concern, so that when you get to the bottom, can you get back up easily? And this park does have just enough flow so that you can maneuver throughout this street course section. The only element truly missing from this park, and there is some of that underneath the bridge portion, which gets the least amount of skating, is some sort of vert wall or vert obstacle. But overall, this park, in terms of a street course and design, in terms of down ledges and everything else, I think this park is brilliant. In 2021, myself and my brother, we rented a U-Haul. We parked here, and for I don't know how many hours, we cleaned much of the roadway that comes from the Harlem River Drive up this ramp. We cleaned a lot of the vegetation and the brush because we knew it would get into people's cars if they had the windows open, if they had children. And we also cleaned as much glass and broken or dangerous material along the roadway, which even included giant branches that had fallen from trees. I think it was due to some heavy rain and thunderstorm that we had a couple of weeks prior. But essentially what I also did is I went even further, and because I knew people were visiting this spot for that event from as far as Japan and all across the country, I wanted to make people feel safe. And I thought, basically what happened in 2021, we hosted, I think, the first ever e-money memorial that gave me a prequel of what to expect in terms of planning and event management. And what I quickly noticed is that people were driving in. First of all, most people could not find the park, whether they were pedestrians traveling via train and public transportation. But all in all, people were messaging my Instagram asking, hey, how do we get to the park? Where's the entrance? There's no signs. This looks pretty sketchy. But the issue is that when people drove in, the people that could locate the driving entrance, when they drove in, they started parking wherever they wanted to, and it created a clusterfuck and a blockade for those that were trying to exit, right? So I quickly decided that when I was going to prepare for the 2021 event, that I was going to designate parking sections. So I laid down, I basically just spray painted an arbitrary line with numbers in the middle. And I think I might have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8, maybe 9, maybe about 10 or maybe as many as 12 parking spaces designated so that everyone can get in and get out safely without blocking anyone else. I think this is a very good issue and a cause for concern, because I would like to know how we can properly manage people coming in and leaving, right? And maybe even making this a bit more of an official parking / barbecue area, right? Normally we barbecue right under the bridge. And I think just for safety's sakes, for people skating, for the grilled food not to go in their face in their air, I think it would be amazing if parks could designate a barbecue section. I mean, we have the fire hydrant, so there is that safety concern. And maybe a pit, right? A barbecue pit, so that is taken care of. And then also signage everywhere that lets you know, where do those stairs lead? Where does that lead? Where can you go? What's off limits? What's hazardous? What plants are poisonous or toxic? And I'm sharing that because this is just one area that we spent a lot of time cleaning up. We may have even cleaned up this entire brush. I don't even think this brush existed when we were here. Let me see. I want to say, honestly, yes. I think I cleaned everything all the way to the fence. I didn't want to leave any stone unturned with regards to safety, with regards to areas that are clearly within range and accessible. Now, if someone wanted to venture into the land of the unknown, I think they are within their right, but they are also on their own in doing so. Clearly, someone is sleeping down at the bottom of the bridge, right? So now we're going to follow this path to see exactly what issues do exist or what improvements have been made. And in e-money fashion, I think one of the last times I saw e-money in New York City was on a skateboard with big wheels, much like this one. All right. This is interesting. This does not look like this was here before. This way you can get traction. Beautiful, I love it. All right, so now we are on the Harlem River Drive for a cleaner, greener NYC, sponsored by nobody. So yeah, this is your bridge. And this is your entrance to the skate park. If you are driving, I do believe there should be some signage on the roadway, which means DOT needs to be involved. Maybe a slow or hazard light included, or a flashing yellow or something yielding for people driving out and entering this area. But yeah, since we have a bit of peace and quiet, I should note that a lot of this vegetation was far worse. I don't remember doing a ton of landscaping down at this level, but I do recall further up the hill where it's mostly clean now. I remember doing a lot of landscaping there. And again, it was mostly because there were giant branches poking into the pathway. And then of course there were some down tree limbs, not branches, but tree limbs and tree almost bark core, if you will, or trunks. And baby, go lift off. in terms of capital improvements, clearly we could expand this roadway, which might cause additional issues with draining, flood mitigation, and so on. But if we're not widening this roadway, my concern is this gate here and what is happening with all of this underutilized, unused space underneath this particular roadway and bridge infrastructure, right? It first dawned on me that this could potentially be a rock climbing wall designated for community rock climbing features, right? Maybe this is a paid structure that you have to enter, or maybe you pay a fee to park, right? So imagine pulling in and paying a fee to park it. I doubt anyone would really want to be in this sort of dark, desolate area. But when you start adding amenities like a restroom, running water, toiletries, food, things people can buy, then you start revitalizing the entire space. This could totally be rehabbed and renovated to include parking, maybe even tiered level parking. Just by counting the blocks on the fence on this side, I can count almost 20 spaces for cars, which means you can easily fit 40 cars easily. But given the magnitude of this skate park and the fact that it is New York's allegedly largest skate park, and it does have some of the biggest inline skate events, and it is visited globally by global participants, I think it's important that we make it welcoming to the community at large. At large meaning not just skaters. Make the park accessible to anyone that wants to drive in, park their car, and take their kids for a day around the park. Let's take a walk up this ramp. There's cobweb in my face. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, that was the main reason I started clearing the vegetation, because of things like cobweb. That looks like some access points for sewage. Jesus, fucking cobwebs everywhere. All right. You can almost see pedestrian paths, right? Man-made pedestrian paths everywhere. I think this is where I did a lot of cleanup in 2021 with some of these broken tree appendages that were blocking the roadway. A lot of very dry vegetation. Some man-made paths that lead down as well. I would say right around here there was a large piece of wood and debris. But looking at this entire space now and just seeing how beautiful and open some of this stuff is, I'm going, maybe this is the parking space and sort of catering space, maybe even, you know, I'm thinking of like how under the K bridges where there is graffiti, but things are a little bit cleaned and maintained. And I think the key to all of that is that there is a fence. So I'm all for safeguarding and securing a space that we are paying for, maintaining, and renovating. So that totally could work. And just FYI, I've taken already approximately 200 steps from the Harlem River Drive right after that gravel starts to get to this point here to where I am standing now. So that area right there for me is huge potential. In all honesty, it would be insane if we actually built like an old school style skate park, like with big ramps here. So that the park is not just what we have up the hill, but maybe it continues here as well. Maybe let's say parking is at the lowest level. This level are large wooden ramps or large ramps so you can practice your big airs and your big vert. This is also weird and interesting to me because there still is no real ADA ramp way to enter this park. Not to my knowledge. This would be a perfect spot for a down rail, host a small event. That's 3 sets of 10, and then we have 4 more sets. So that's 4 and 3, 7 full sets of beautifully crafted masonry and concrete. and 10. 10, 7 times. It's possible this might be the best entrance to the skate park. I've never actually explored this route. Ten. Now where exactly I am, couldn't fucking tell you. But it looks like this looks like it leads right back out to the roadway, right? Because I'm just kind of following the buildings outside on Amsterdam. Damn, I can't even get the drone up here with all this tree coverage. Definitely no light fixture, as you can see. So that is a safety concern. But with such a wide set of stairs, and with all of the landscaping on the exterior, and with all of this wide open space here, we could easily build, there easily can be a ramp that comes. I would say the best part would be probably for the ramp to come off of this exterior portion and follow the very edge of the vegetation. Once again, the vegetation is gonna have to be pushed back, right? So that's a concern. Obviously, this ground is a concern if we were to put ADA access, all right? I just wanna make some of these locations more welcoming, that's it, you know? I hate when I see a parent with a child who looks very curious and they're like, oh, is that a skate park? And they want to enter. Maybe their kid's on a little trike bike, or maybe they're on a play school toy bike, or on a toy scooter, not even a real obstacle. Maybe they're in a toy car, but they see other people on wheels having the best fucking time of their life. And as a child, as a toddler, you start going, geez, I want to go in there. And as a parent, you can't help but want to take your child there. So we are exactly at 175th. 175th in Amsterdam. So these are your 2 entrances, or your 3 entrances to the park. I guess we'll jump up in the sky, shoot the drone, and look in that direction. So you've got your 181st entrance, which is fairly the worst, but that's, the name of the park is ironically 181 Skate Park, right? The people will always give it a name that they feel is sufficient. So you can enter at Amsterdam Avenue and 175th Street, take this long curved bumpy path. However, you can walk it comfortably without really any gross interruptions other than some fecal matter. And needles, the norm, but you're not gonna have to dodge a giant puddle of mud and God knows what else. So let's get the drone in the air. Let's get the eye in the sky. Entering at 175th in Amsterdam. Just wanted to highlight the ground. Perfect ground for a city park. Worst ground if you are a skateboarder or inline skater or roller skater. This only works because I have the fat, chunky wheels. And even then I still have to dodge. The vegetation is normal, but the giant cracks and inconsistencies are what are the worst. shit. All right. Here we are, making our way down some steps. And then this section is perfectly paved, so all that needs to happen at the top of the stairs is that they need to put this type of ground. So I don't even need to really film this, but the point I'm making is if you're inexperienced and you're coming up to this, you might not know how to brake, and that is the quintessential foot on the ground, apply pressure when stopping on a skateboard. Little bit of a landslide here. Looks like this is what I would call, is this an official drain? It looks like it might be just nature's own pathway, right? Or like stream or drain. So just from looking at this right now, I can tell that obviously you want to follow nature's curvature path, but maybe build a proper drain here. And you may need to go underneath this surface and widen it as you get lower, right? And then what you would do is you would have a larger drain that then continues underneath all of this structure and maybe just drains naturally into the soil beneath so that it doesn't spill out onto the paved walkway, pedestrian way. I would go this way, but there's too much debris. That obviously is a ramp going back up. I always think of how I can traverse down and up. So in a situation like this, because this park is lacking proper flow or circular flow, all right, I would consider building a walkway that went up so that you could get the momentum to go back up, right? So a variety of mounds or humps or tits, as they are affectionately called. So yeah, in 2021, I did a lot of landscaping in this area, but the landscaping I did was not for the trees and the vegetation. It was strictly so that people can walk, bike, skate, drive without things coming into their path, their line of sight, or puncturing tires or tripping them up, or things that they might potentially fall on, right, and get injured. So that was my main concern. It was also my concern that I didn't want debris that was already there coming back into the pathway. So any long stems and branches that I cut, let's say that were on this side, I dumped on the other side. I don't think I had a lot of cleanup here. I wasn't just picking up trash. So like if there were bottles and cans, I was not picking those up. But again, if it were in the way or the path, then I would pick it up and move it, put them in trash bags. A lot of the stuff here is relatively gross, but no more gross than you would expect anywhere else. My thoughts for places underneath the bridges and underpasses is that much like the subway, right? The subway is not exposed to the elements in a majority of the subway system. But guess what MTA does? They come out and power wash the subway regularly. More people utilize the subway system than they do the skate parks, but I don't think it would hurt to get a power wash done. You know, you're talking there's 12 months in the year. This skate park in particular, this area I'm pointing at in particular, probably has never been power washed, ever. Same thing with Coleman Skate Park, with all of the NYC and Hollywood and TV and film and media and entertainment, that park gets covered. To me, it's a surprise that they haven't actually gone in there and power washed it regularly. So once again, the areas that are in question for us, I would say this is about 5 feet. We want not what we want, but what I did last time, because I know how crowded it gets, right? If you've got 2 people standing here, again, when these events go on, it's not just the spectators, it's people filming these events, documenting these events. These are life-changing events, life-changing moments. It's not just about the number of prizes and the money that's given away, it's about the influence and the impact that we make on the community, the younger generation. This pathway often gets utilized for defecating and urination. 2021, I had a porta potty stationed here. The porta potty delivery truck came in up that ramp, parked, turned around, came back out. But I found that this pathway was most conducive, but I think for future reference, if that can be designated barbecue and, you know, maybe rest and porta potties, bathrooms and everything just mounted to the exterior wall or to the fence, I think that is a win-win situation for everyone and the entire skate community. Obviously the toilets, maybe they get fenced off and maybe there's a serious lock and key system so that no one can access them, or maybe we just build proper infrastructure for toilets that cannot be broken into. And again, we're talking 5 to 10 feet. So that tree was fully visible down to the soil when I landscaped and cleaned up all of this in 2022. So if we had to break it down by square footage, and just in terms of gardening and landscaping cleanup, you know, if you're talking, let's say this is 100 feet by, let's say 10, so 10 times 100 is how much I think we should expect to clean up between here and some of the other areas further down, and then a lot of this side here. This side, obviously, we don't need 5 feet of clearance, but when it comes down to it, and it's a summer month, and there's a lot of people out here, the vegetation breeds vermin, it breeds insects, and not insects to me of a pleasant nature. It breeds mice, it breeds a lot of, you know, like even this section here, because this is one of the most skated portions in our inline community. We all roll down this portion and we skate this section. That's food for thought with all skate parks. I think all skate parks should have an exterior type of bank or ramp or hump or tit or something to keep that momentum and to keep that flow. The flow is so important because there's nothing worse than skating to one end of the park, being exhausted, and all of that energy that you're expending is dissolved into thin air, so to speak, instead of it being recycled, upcycled using a pump track or a hump or a pump feature or a bank or ramp of some kind to give you back or to keep that potential energy flowing in a kinetic wave. I should say the only time I've truly been scared out here was from the raccoons, not the junkies and the riffraffs. I mean, honestly, they pop out of the blue sometimes and it is scary, but the raccoons are the ones that are, I think, more intimidating because you don't see them. Like, I remember there was a raccoon that jumped out of a tree when I was taking a piss, and it wasn't right next to me, but it was still scary enough that I went, oh shit, there's fucking raccoons in trees. I never thought of that. I never thought raccoons climb trees, but why wouldn't they? So yeah, vegetation wise, oh, I would like, this is a all of the exterior of the parks, once again, are the best vantage points, especially, so even if you made it friendly for people to enter the park, there's some people who are still very shy, very timid, and maybe they just are outsiders and they don't care to be around the people who are in the park. Maybe the people in the park are smokers, maybe they are drinkers, maybe they are not smoking or drinking, maybe they just hate skating, maybe they hate the culture, maybe they hate the lifestyle, but maybe they love documenting it. This is where spectators and people who are gathering and documenting things go. And this right here is fucking amazing. DIY. All of this vegetation has to go. Has to go. There's no fucking way. The other big issue with it, right? So like right now, I cannot see the event. This is right where I'm standing. The top of the steps and the bottom, like basically from the top of the steps to the bottom of the steps to this corner, all the way around. This is where most of the magic happens. It's like walking into Disneyland for your first time. When you first come to this park and there's a big event happening, like there will be June 15th, Saturday, June 15th, the E-Money, 4th annual E-Money Memorial. What happens when you first enter the park is you start hearing the noise, you start hearing people. And then as you're coming closer, you get this view of the park that sticks with you forever. And it's so welcoming. Whoever designed the park landscaping and layout did a great job. The parks have become utilized to an extent where now we understand what we can do better moving forward. And what we can do better moving forward is creating a more accessible pathway, better lighting, and I would even consider photoluminescent paint or strips or things similar to what you see on highway construction. I think of skate parks largely as like the wild, wild west. And I think these are all things that should be considered. This ledge is a prime spot where people stand and gather. So, you know, even if you cleared a foot, that wouldn't be enough. I feel as if all of these borders and perimeters need to be cleared maybe 5 feet. All right, so this is the view once again. And just imagine all of these landslides, right? So definitely some serious upkeep and infrastructure to, at the very least, keep Mother Nature at bay. She looks preggo. Hey, mama. More pathways, right? See how nice and clean that pathway is? We need pathways like this, of this nature, surrounding the skate park. And I would even go further and say that I've always thought it would be so amazing for accessibility issues to have a portion of this infrastructure, right? This pedestrian pathway designed so that if you are on wheels, wheelchair, skate, skateboard, BMX, mountain bike, so that you could potentially roll all the way into the park instead of having to stop and take the stairs. And when I say roll, I don't mean that you're gonna roll in a manner where you're gonna get whisked away and fly, but rather you're gonna roll gradually into some curves that maybe zigzag around trees. Maybe it's a beginner's gravity-based pump track, so it allows younger children and beginners to flow effortlessly down through the vegetation, down through the landscaping, maybe down and around. Maybe it starts here and cuts over the stairs and then comes back around on the other side and gradually dumps out behind the ledges that I was pointing at on the far south end, right in that direction. So that's another design element that I've been thinking about for a few years, right? Having some sort of infrastructure where you can roll all the way into the park without generating massive speed. I don't want to call it a snake run, but a snake run is essentially what I'm envisioning. How would I improve this section? All right, again, we have big wide open spaces. I love it. I love it. I want to see more of this closer to where the park is, so people feel welcome to venture into the greenery. Again, because people come from far and wide to visit our NYC skate parks, I would love to see proper signage, not just signage for safety and evacuations, but safety for just spatial awareness and information. So safety and evacuation would include signage that tells you this way to this street, this way, this is safe, yada, yada, yada. Safety signage would also tell you curve up ahead, stairs up ahead. That type of safety and evacuation thinking that I have taken from architecture and from, you know, transportation, DOT, for example, applies because I broke my clavicle at a skate park on a last-minute, split-second decision. But that decision was based on the information as I was processing it, as I was flying through the air. Now, had I seen some markings on the ground that told me, I think, oh, this is the edge of the ramp. I think the same way how pools have heights on their, you know, this ramp is 3 feet, this pool is 3 feet deep. I think all ramps should have signage that tells you how high they are. Why? Because it's a benchmark for you to progress. So yeah, safety and evacuation, it's signage. It's signage that says 4-foot bowl approaching. There's lines, yellow lines on the edges of all, like DOT and DOB and city construction. You have yellow markings where there are things like bus stops, where there are curb cuts. All of these are safety cues for you driving, but because we are on wheels as well, skates, right? Rollerblades, inline skates, skateboards, BMX, scooters, wheelchairs, and other mobility devices for accessibility. In an emergency situation where I'm going over that yellow line or I'm approaching that yellow line and I move my feet unconsciously thinking, oh, I'm just gonna hop this way and keep rolling, not realizing if I pick my feet up as I approach that yellow line, I'm gonna fall 10 feet to my face. So these are things that I think about. These are things I think should be implemented at this park in particular, but something that we should consider for future skate park design and just parks in general, safety features, you know? Maybe not every park has to have it. And again, parks are part of nature, so it's difficult to say we're gonna put a marking on every single step everywhere, but maybe a sign that tells you where this is going. A sign that tells you that leads to this portion. Maybe we don't put signs for things like this, but maybe there is something that says pedestrian path, welcome. But yeah, floor markings definitely a big thing I would do. Oh, and what I should say about this pedestrian section here with this trestle is that it's sheltered. That's a big issue with skate parks, is shelter and coverage. Again, I was talking about how dusty it was down in that area for the power washing, but I think in areas that are sheltered, what happens is this area becomes a sort of junkie, drug user safe haven. When it rains, when it's cold, they all huddle under there, they huddle elsewhere. I guess the point I'm making is that many times I've had to navigate through that trestle underneath that tunnel, and there's been a lot of people in the tunnel handling their drug addiction, their substance abuse problems, usually shooting up, hanging out, talking. And they're usually friendly, but the point is I still have to navigate past them. And I think if you can eliminate people gathering there by designing other structures where people can seek shelter, right? I'm not saying you have to make a home for the homeless and for the junkies. I'm just saying that when you design these spaces, you have to consider that they're going to get misused or abused in a fashion that is counterproductive. But yeah, that's one thought. And then this section here connects and goes over to the bridge. So we'll take a walk there now. I think in 2016 is when we first started hosting these events. I was brought on as a co-host and organizer. And I remember we were debating on, you know, how the event was going to play out. And I remember we had decided that this would be the final spot for the 2016, the first ever Bashi Pope skate off. And myself and a colleague, Jesus, we spent all night cleaning up this brush and debris. I think we cleaned up some on that side as well. And back then we didn't have the landscaping tools. We did everything by hand. We had gloves, but you know, we're from the bottom, so this wasn't a huge issue for us. Park closes at 7 p.m. I think signage about the park name itself is important. There's no park signage that says Highbridge Skatepark or 181 Skatepark, or let's give it a name. Let's E-Money Skatepark, you know, RIP Eric Estrada, Eric Aguirre, right? Let's give it a name. Where's the name? Where's the signage? Where's the plaque on the floor? Did I miss that? There might have been a plaque on the floor that says dedicated in 2014 to whatever, yada, yada. But yeah, okay, let's look at this pathway. So this is a very odd pedestrian pathway. It's by far on both the north and the south side, it's extremely narrow, right? Very narrow pathway. And what happens is most people, bikers, they would come here, hop over, and then just continue onto Amsterdam Avenue or 181. And they do this because this path sucks. And it's so convoluted that you have to go this way, then down a ramp or downstairs, through a shitty, messy space, and then up a very janky ramp. I'll show you that ramp now once I get across. 8-9 or 9-8 coming down, all right? So here we go. Go with the obstacle course, American Ninja Warrior shit. This is your ramp going up. So if you're on a bike, this is what you're expected to take to exit, right? So it's a relatively basic gradual curve. I would say if you're not good at skating or biking, this might be a little bit scary for you. You know, definitely a sharp stop and curve. So I think if there's any way to redesign this, I would definitely consider how. This looks like this might be a great addition to the park here. So yeah, there you have it. I would definitely put some signage out here. You know, in 2021, what I essentially did is I posted, I think I might have stuck signs on the post. Maybe I put them here. Basically, all it said was, you know, New York Skate Series, Bashi Pope Skate Off. You know, I think it might have had an arrow saying that way. you know, and I did a lot of Google Map updates. I think I even updated Google Maps to show that the park is not located in the Bronx, which is, you know, where the park was allegedly in the Bronx when I searched it in 2016, that's where it popped up on the map, and I had to adjust it and move it. I couldn't do that until I gave it an address. So I used the address of this property here to kind of figure out what the alternate address would be, and I got a rough idea. But yeah, park, it needs signage, you know. Highbridge Park, you know, Hamilton Bridge Skatepark, this way. You know, even if there's a floor signage that says bike path this way, you know, same thing, so that people understand this, you know, this is not a path, like this is, but yeah, this is the side that connects. Signage, photoluminescent paint. Strips won't really work, but even things like, you know, I don't know if this is DOT, but I don't know. I'm just trying to find some of the reflective things that I see out here, right? So this is reflective, right? So why not have something of that nature in certain low-lying areas of the ground? I don't know. I feel like I shot at least a prime example of some improvements that we direly need. I think 175th should also have signage. Don't block the box. The Rev one. I guess that's all for now. I'm heading home.